Madison's Henry Vilas Zoo is recognized as one of the best zoos in the country and is a key partner in conservation efforts.
Tomorrow is the zoo's second annual Save Our Species Luncheon, and the theme this year is a conversation on conservation. The two featured speakers are with us today. John Calvelli at the far end of the couch is with the Wildlife Conservation Society. Welcome, John.
Welcome.
And Dr. Chris Dold is a Madison native, a graduate of the UW Vet School, and is Chief Veterinary Officer at SeaWorld. Welcome home, Chris. Good to see you both.
Thank you.
Let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the work you do at SeaWorld and what you're going to be presenting tomorrow with the luncheon.
Sure. Well, so this luncheon is really an opportunity for us all to get together and talk about conservation. At SeaWorld, we're proud to have a couple of feet in the water, as it were. We take care of animals that come in to our parks from the beach with our rescue programs. We take care of the animals that live within our parks that our guests get to see every day. And then we're also able to do pretty substantial philanthropic work around the world for through our conservation fund. And so we'll be telling stories about all of the work that we're able to do, and then our partnerships with organizations like the Wildlife Conservation Society.
And John, tell us about the society. What is your...
So we are not the new kids on the block. We've been around since 1895. Wow. We were founded through the help of President Teddy Roosevelt. And one of the two things that we were committed to doing was helping educate people about conservation and wildlife. And we opened the Bronx Zoo in 1899. So we run the 4 zoos in the aquarium in New York. And then, of course, to do work overseas to help save wildlife. And we now work in approximately 60 countries around the world, helping to protect about 50% of the world's biological diversity.
And what's your message for the luncheon tomorrow?
You know, I think as we talk about these two institutions, Henry Vilas is such an important part of that conversation because all the zoos together have about 200 million visitors a year. So we have a really important responsibility to tell the message that we're all advocates for wildlife. They can't speak for themselves. We have to speak for them.
And Chris, do you often have to answer a lot of questions about the welfare of animals versus the benefit of animals in zoos and the challenges they face in the wild?
Absolutely. That's part of something that we all work on in the collective zoological community, is making sure that we aren't just providing great care for the animals that live within our parks, but we're challenging them, creating enriching environments. But ultimately, the goal of all of us as zoological members of the zoological community is to allow those animals to be the ambassadors for their wild counterparts. We've got great conservation research happening in all of our parks, so we can study the animals that live within our parks, and then we can use that science that we develop to enhance conservation initiatives out in the wild, all the while letting kids and families meet these extraordinary animals and recruiting the next generation of conservation specialists.
I have to say on that, I saw some of the video from the Henry Vilas Zoo, and you had 2 bison coming in. So the bison, there were 30 million bison in our country. They were hunted to almost extinction. There were only 21 left. We actually bred them at the Bronx Zoo in 1905, 1906, 1907, and thanks to 2 companies, American Express and Wells Fargo, because they had trains then, they actually took the bison from the zoo and shipped them out west. So many of those bison that you see in federal reserves can trace their roots back to the zoo. So the fact is, that story is being told literally every day in New York, but seeing those bison here at the Henry Vilas Zoo is helping to also tell that story of how zoos help save the national mammal.
Right. Have zoos' missions changed over the years? Have what they're meant to do?
I think if you look at the long trajectory of zoos, yes, but I will say that foundation in conservation, as John just mentioned, has been there for a very, very long time. They've continued to grow and develop into near university-like settings where you have science and research happening at the same time that education is happening, and then ultimately inspiration. But that focus, that continued enhanced focus on larger conservation initiatives for zoos to be engines for conservation has been honed and developed and emphasized strongly over the last few years, and that's a critical need right now because, as we mentioned, there are more and more endangered species every day. Yeah. We're facing a new global extinction event caused by human beings, generally considered to be caused by human beings. So we've all got a tremendous responsibility to do everything we can for animals in the wild, and almost all of that work starts in zoological parks.
It's interesting. I would say that the mission has always been the same, but the way we go forward in that mission has changed, right? So some of the things that, who knew about social media in 1895, right? So you have to look at it from that perspective. And what you find now is a very interested electorate. People are excited to be engaged. And that's an opportunity for us in the zoo community to take that 200 million people that are coming through our parks and saying, you know what, we can be part of a movement. I'm wearing a button that says change agent. We all are change agents. We all have to make lives better, not just for us, but for the wildlife.
Absolutely. The Save Our Species luncheon tomorrow, 11:30. At the Edgewater Hotel in Madison. For tickets and information, go to vilaszoo.org. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us and keep up the great work.
Great to see
Thank you
you
very much.
both.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back with the final check of your forecast.